Hello, everybody. My name is Marco Pignataro. I'm the managing director for the Berklee Global Jazz Institute, and I'm here with the artistic director, Danilo Perez, of the Berklee Global Jazz Institute, and we are delighted to welcome our student, Liza Micelli, and to listen to her presentation, CE presentation, part of the 2020 3-class CE presentation called Indigenous Voice of American Music, Composition Inspired by Research of a Native American Contribution to Blues and Jazz. We would like to also welcome her advisor, Chase Moring, and her panelists, Mr. Ron Wilburn and Mr. Lee Mixshon. And with no further ado, we would like to again give a warm welcome to Liza Micelli, and we're looking forward to listen to your presentation, Liza. Go on.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Liza Micelli, and my project is entitled The Indigenous Voice of American Music and Compositions Inspired by Research of a Native American Contribution to Blues and Jazz. The first part of my presentation will share information gathered via interviews and literature regarding specific Native American music, culture, and history, and its proposed connection to the blues and jazz. The second part, I will be sharing my own music developed and recorded this year while at Berklee Global Jazz Institute, inspired by all that I have only just yet to begun to learn, including that of my own personal experience and journey. I'd like to uplift all the individuals who shared their knowledge and research as well as literature that informed this project. For lack of time, I will be using words like native, indigenous, plains natives, southeastern tribes throughout the presentation, but it's important to understand blanket terms like these contribute to the erasure of diversity within Pan-American indigenous cultures, which furthermore deserve to be represented and understood, and are words that do not tell the full story. As I have only just begun to touch the surface of this incredibly complex and widely debated topic, I place center stage the words of the previous individuals in hopes to allow their perspectives to spark a hunger to understand more as they have done for me. Over recent years, there have been newly recognized contributions to the diaspora of jazz. Another contribution I'd like to shed light on is that of the Native American. For some, this is common knowledge, but to others, it is completely new consideration. Lack of awareness of the diversity of Native American music is attributed to a complex history that led to its erasure, which is key to understanding the roots of American music. One of my first experiences with Native American music was at a musical demonstration in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I was informed that the powwow tradition being performed had a cyclical form similar to the blues. This detail made me question, was there perhaps a Native American influence on the blues? In this clip from a documentary called Rumble will demonstrate Native blues musician Pura Fé listening to Charlie Patton, considered by many as the grandfather of the blues.
See, so when I hear this, it's Indian music to me, you know. Do you hear it? Yeah.
Charlie Patton's lyrics in this segment includes a verse that perhaps reveals Patton's connection to his native ancestry while expressing his frustration for not being allowed to stay on the reservation. I want to highlight the last line where he says, "I've been to that nation, but Lord, I couldn't stay there." Not being able to stay at that nation can perhaps be due to racism caused by the Dawes Severalty Act of 1887, which allotted land to Native people as well as the freedmen. Patton grew up living and working at the Mississippi Plantation Dockery Farms, known as the birthplace of the blues, and a place likely to have employed Native people. Patton was believed to be Choctaw. While in New Orleans, I interviewed both Dr. John DePriest and Dr. Jeffrey Derensberg, who strongly encouraged me to look at stomp dance and social dances of the southeastern tribes consisting of the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole. This map depicts the territories of those 5 civilized tribes, quote unquote, residing in the eastern United States in 1820 before the Indian Removal Act, which moved them east of the Mississippi River, which would be here. All of these people are now placed in the state of Oklahoma and parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. Two major components of the stomp dance are the turtle shell shaker rhythm and call and response. There is much debate surrounding the origin of this style, being that of West African, native, or perhaps an alchemy. Here's an example demonstrating a social dance song called Stealing Partners, sung by Lola Jean Darling from our walking tour of New Orleans. Lola grew up dancing this dance and admitted to later recognizing its semblance with the blues.
Yo, 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 ale, yo, ale, yo, ale, Yahweh. Tush Bafalama, we ale cano, stale cano.
When asking Dr. DePriest if he thought Charlie Patton took part in social dances like this, he said, "I don't want to say he 100% heard this music, but I think it's more likely than not. At that time, these kind of social dances were common and spontaneous." In my interview with Dr. Derensberg, he recommended I read an essay written by Mr. Ron Welburn called Native Americans in Jazz, Blues, and Popular Music from this Smithsonian publication entitled Indivisible. Here is an excerpt of that essay. Certain beats, rhythms, and lyrical and syncopation qualities in jazz have been attributed as American Indian in origin, rather than strictly African American. Much debate surrounds how these elements are heard and felt. Let's take a listen to a few styles attributed to now the Plains Indians of the Midwest.
You can't always get what you want, not even in the name of love, Yahweh. But I
Further included in the aforementioned essay were the following quotes from native jazz bassist Oscar Pettiford and a mention of native drummer Jesse Price. I'll let you take a read. This map of the French Quarter shows a blue line representing Rampart Street, where Dr. Derensburg said there was a wall separating the city from the native communities that had encampments along nearby creeks and the neighborhood of Tremé. Their ceremonial grounds were in the vicinity of Congo Square, and their portage roads are partly shown in yellow. Sharing his opinion, Derensburg said, "Why do people never think about the fact you have these indigenous people here? The African enslaved are dancing on their dancing ground. You don't think they're dancing with them? And for there to be no musical influence would be contrary to everything we have learned about Homo sapiens in the last 100,000 years. That's impossible." This drum has been identified as belonging to the Choctaw living close to New Orleans on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. The size and construction is highly unusual for native instruments of this region. In essence, this drum embodies the blending of musical traditions in the lower Mississippi River Valley over the past 3 centuries. All of this is just touching the surface, and there is so much more I don't have time to share, and so much more I need to learn. For the second half of my presentation, I'd love to share the music I've developed this year, as well as personal growth as an artist. The first piece, called The Voo, which is a powwow song by Bear Creek, was the first encounter I had with Native American music while studying abroad. I was deeply impacted by this recording and wanted to capture the essence and energy of the wall of vocal sound on the piano. I developed new dissonant voicings connected to the blues that greatly challenged my playing. This next piece includes excerpts from an oral testimony of boarding school survivor Roy. It was composed in reaction to learning about the trauma caused to our native populations and as a sending prayer to those who have lost their lives.
What was life like for you before you went to residential school?
Oh, my life was happy. All I can remember is happy. I had no anybody ever hit me before. Living in my family, we're always together, doing everything as one. It was just like going to a different world when I went into that school.
The doctrine of discovery is essentially the church in Europe saying to the nations of Europe, wherever you go, whatever lands you find not ruled by white European Christian rulers, those people are subhuman and their lands are yours for the taking. I think the worst part of it is making us feel dirty of who we were. And that really hurts. And the way I felt towards my parents when I came back, and that feeling of thinking that same thought they were thinking of how no good we were. Didn't have to believe in their God.
The last piece has two movements. The first is entitled, "We Think Too Much and Feel Too Little." This movement was composed inspired in part by my conversation with Micelli Rossi about ancestral recall and his wave concepts. The second movement's melody was built around tetrachords and the rhythm of Chaplin's monologue from his film The Great Dictator, a satire on Hitler, expressing his wish for humanity. I learned Hitler developed Germany's policies based on U.S. Indian race law, and that the writing of our democracy was inspired by the Iroquois Confederacy.
17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written that the kingdom of God is within man, not one man, not a group of men, but in all men. In you the people have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You the people have the power to make this life free and beautiful. To make this life a wonderful adventure. In the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all
I was reminded through this process, being an outsider, interacting with Indigenous people, knowledge and history, that there's an obligation to treat it with respect, and trying to put out work that has an impact on Indigenous communities should look to prioritize ways to benefit them other than clarifying historic record and preventing erasure. And so I'm currently in that pursuit. With gratitude, I'd like to thank all of my wonderful musicians that participated in the recording process and lending their ideas, their creativity. I'd like to thank my panelists, Mr. Ron Welburn and Mixashawn Rossi, for their valuable time and words of encouragement during this process, as they and the other interviewees have entrusted me with their knowledge and research. I promise to be a good caretaker of your work and stories. To the BGJI class and directors Marco Piñataro and Danilo Perez, advisor Chase Morin, my professors Jerry Leek and Vadim Neselovsky, guest artists and faculty for inspiring me and lending their generous support through this very challenging and rewarding year. To my personal cheerleader, Peter Mack, for his wisdom and endless patience. To our student staff, Samuel Batista, Jonathan Shillingford, Shadi Opong, and Sydney, and administration, Mary McClory, and the rest of her team for all the hard work they do. And to, lastly, the student engineers, Mateo Lodonio and Vera Arnott, for volunteering their time and lending their creative input. Thank you very much. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Liza. I hope you could hear the big clap we all do and sharing this important work you presented. And so we're gonna move on to the second part of your presentation, which is the question and or comments. And as per format, we usually start with your panelists, and so I would like to leave space for your panelists, either Mr. Ron Welburn or Lee Mixashawn, to have any comments or question for you. Congratulations so much, Liza, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. I loved it. What I liked is the way you did your research. You really had a very open mind in doing that, and the music that you created was top notch. I really enjoyed it, I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mixashawn. I'm grateful for all the wisdom. I watched our interview countless times, re-edited, tried to incorporate many different ways, things that didn't get included. But you informed me in so many ways that aren't shown here.
Oh, well, thank you. It showed up in the music because it's on point for sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mixation, and thank you for being with us today. And I'm gonna give the room to your advisor, Maestro Chase Morin.
Ooh, we made it, Liza. Congratulations. I appreciate the respect and all the care and the dedication to hundreds of different revisions of this project. So I know you've been so deep in the process, and I'm excited to see how you continue in the future. Let me start. I would love to ask you a question because I know there's so much you didn't get to go into with this presentation. So could you one, maybe if there's anything you'd like to illuminate about some of your research or some of your approach to your musical compositions that you didn't get a chance to talk about, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, and then also maybe some of your future plans for this project.
Sure. I wanted to highlight a conversation that I had with Mixashawn about his wave concepts. We talked in depth about it, and as we were speaking, we were talking about the waves in nature, and that even we ourselves are waves. Everything in nature, in the universe, is a wave. And in the last piece, while we were speaking about it, I was connecting that to the concept of the quarter note, which has been ever present through this process and music and pan-native styles. And thinking about our concepts at Global Jazz with windows, I realized that with this concept of waves, we can tap into different dimensions, figuratively speaking, or tapping into a window, technically speaking, using polymeters, which I see as different frequencies. And let me go back to the last piece. If you were to in the first movement, I have this diagram of a sine wave that can be translated to a quarter note and to a circle. And in the chart itself, you could see this piece. I see this really as being a series of a bunch of quarter notes, even though they suggest polymeter, potentially, the duple against 3. If you take away the foundation of this 5/4 ostinato, we're then in this, quarter note 4/4 world, or this duple world. If you take away the 5/4 here, you're in this, I see this as the okonkodo pattern of the bata, and we could go into a different window and explore a 6/8 world. And so that was something I didn't get to explore and develop, but I look forward to kind of maturing into this piece and playing with the idea of quarter notes, using them as, frequencies, establishing different frequencies to create different multidimensionality, or windows, how we've called it here at Global. If that makes sense.
And your future plans?
Yes. So I plan to continue pursuing relationships with scholars and elders and musicians within the urban Native community here in Chicago and beyond. And I really have loved the topic of ethnomusicology and would like to keep going in that direction, combined with composition, of course. And I want to collaborate with educational institutions like BGJI and others here in Chicago to create, there's pilot programs going on right now in the city called the Indigenous Curricular Pilot Program. And I'm trying to partner with them to incorporate a musical aspect to implementing this new perspective of introducing Native history, reforming it within the school system. And then, of course, you saw a snippet of Roy's testimony. It's been part of the idea of creating an educational documentary, or perhaps summing this whole project into a documentary. So that's a future plan.
Okay, thank you, Liza.
Great,
Marco,
thank you.
Yes, go
sorry.
ahead, Patricia. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
Marco, sorry. I just want to clarify the concept of windows. And I want to ask Liza, because windows, what we mean at the Global by windows is windows are possibilities. And they're possibilities that, they're musical possibilities, and they are relationship possibilities, but they're possibilities that emerge from musical and non-musical relationships of people. So I just want to clarify, what are the relationships with people and with communities that you have had, Liza, that you can compare the concept of windows from the global to the concept of window with the theoretical musical elements that you're talking about. I didn't understand the relationship. Can you clarify that?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. There's an individual that I had built a collaborative friendship with that is not included in this project, and he asked not to be. And we talked at length. He's a Native musician, and we were collaborating. He was very much a big part of this process and teaching me really how tender it is to build this relationship between the Native community that I'm pursuing, and so curious about and inspired by, and it was, I don't know how to put it into words, but that he showed me how tender it was to build that relationship, and he believed that it was important because we still are in contact, but he's teaching me how ethically to treat the information he shares, how to develop a work, or perhaps just be a sponge, really. I have, this is a new process for me, socially. It's so new. So in that regard, I've kind of, been seeing the possibilities and and maybe not the possibilities, or the patience that I need for the relationships and the mending of these relationships to grow and to heal. And with that, we're, doing it through music.
Okay, thank you, Liza. We are a little out of time, so I'm gonna ask our artistic director to ask you any question or comment you may have.
Congratulations, Lisa. I am resonated still with the comment from Ron. Thank you very much for being a source of information and profound. You could hear that she really respects this process, and I love what he said. You mentioned to him, Lisa, there's a lot of things that I wanted to include that I didn't include it, but he said it doesn't matter because I felt it in the music. And I would like to encourage you to keep in mind this concept that we've been talking this year. It's like when you are getting into this project of this kind of depth and that you are always very clear about position yourself either as a very clear as a narrator, as a researcher, and exposing really the being a medium. You know what I mean? So I just really want to encourage you to keep looking for what that means in terms of the of your role in terms of telling the story. It's also it's important to keep in mind that this is an incredible addition to the already wealth research knowledge of the African influence in the music. So that's another also take that I would put in there, that this will encourage a bigger aspect of the studies as a foundation. Let me see. I just wrote a couple of things. I went in terms of music. I love the music. That last piece is very moving, Lisa. I actually would like to get a copy of that. There are a couple of times in the presentation that I would just go back a little bit. I give more context to, like the first woman, for example, that came in, that we didn't know a lot about her, and the comment she made that this is the blues, it would be reinforced that we have more context about her. So you know, things like that. The presence of Chaplin. Can you explain a little bit more of that?
Yes.
Why? Yeah.
So while I was studying in Puerto Rico, which, as we all know, is a colony of the United States, I was taking a history class. And in that class, I was presented with a lot of facets of history that I was unaware of. And my teacher used that monologue to teach us about genocide and also what democracy is. And he shared that this was the first time I had heard our democracy, the United States, was based on the Iroquois Confederacy. So that shed a light on that. And then I further learned that in that class that Hitler's German policies were based on U.S. Indian race law. And so these were kind of, I guess you could say, seeds that were planted in me that have sent me down this path.
And you know, would be in that and if that's the direction, it would be really interesting to add the aspect of Romani influence in Chaplin. You know, he was of Indian background, and that would be, I think that would also make it strong. Anyway, the music is beautiful. Thank you very much for all this support. Lisa, has been fantastic working with you. This is you know, you can dedicate all your life to this. The thing that I'm very proud about the work is that you have found a topic that is going to give you food for living. Remember, we talk about homework, we call it life work. This is life work, and there's so many aspects of this presentation to develop. I would encourage you to go and see if there's any way to live close to the community, start practicing the music with them and the STEM terms, you know, on those terms and experiences. You know, I think this is so important, and I encourage you to continue in this journey. Thanks for being so. I really enjoy working with you and your kindness and your and how you deal with situations that were challenging for you and for me and for the institute, for everybody. But you know, your heart always saved you. Beautiful. Really, that's the word I can describe.
Thank you, Maestro. I'm incredibly grateful for this experience, and I can't say as much in words.
Thank you, Liza. I second every word Maestro said. Congratulations. And, you know, you're part of this family forever. And really was very, very moving to hear your music and to see the product of this big, big effort you put in. So thank you so much. To be correct, Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth officially,
Yeah.
not a colony. Let's make sure we use the right words, okay? But anyway,
Very, very important, yeah.
yes. Anyway, congratulations.